Greetings. As you may know, a distinction is often made between the common garden idiot and the idiot savant. The standard idiot reads a book and mostly forgets it. The idiot savant, especially if the book has had a profound effect on them, might remember that book for a few days or even for weeks, or maybe for as long as they are to remain alive. Some idiots like learning pieces of prose or poetry, like the book people in Fahrenheit 451, who commit entire volumes of prose to memory in order to preserve literary culture in a society where books, as well as people, are, to use our 21st century terminology, prone to being cancelled. So reciting a book as a sort of book cover version or book karaoke might serve two purposes. For the idiot reciting it, an opportunity to internalize its words even further, words they might wish to live by in the hope that the other's wisdom imparted through these words might shape their thoughts and actions in a meaningful way. So I guess the ritual of recitation kind of serves as a meditative practice, embedding the book's essence, if you like, into their consciousness so as to be utilized by a silent and probably more subconscious part of one's inner family. For someone listening or watching the recital of a book, hopefully the communication of its contents feels, in this way, closer in spirit to a sort of a personal reading or a communication from a friend, and thus might encourage deeper connections to the material at hand and maybe a more profound engagement with its themes. Who knows? So, I'm looking forward to reading your thoughts and reflections on this in the comments below. Let's begin. So the first chapter is Presence and Essence. As has been written 1,000 times, the ultimate nature of essential reality cannot be communicated in words. However, this reality often manifests in the pure essential forms of consciousness and experience, in what Almaas calls the aspects of essence, such as love, strength, peace, compassion, as well as awareness. The experience of these aspects is completely palpable, he argues, and thus subject to keen and precise discrimination. It is this fact that allows the verbal descriptions and analyses that his book on essence undertakes. The concept of essence is found in some spiritual traditions such as Sufism and some schools of Buddhism, though the word essence is not always used. In more common usage, essence means that aspect of something that is most true, real, or substantial. It is the essence of something that makes it what it is. I'm just watching The Essence of Max. In the course of his book, Almaas's usage becomes increasingly clear, so we might ultimately see that the spiritual and common understanding of this word actually do converge in a deeper, more subtle, and yet also sort of simpler way than it is first possible to appreciate. Beginning to understand essence means beginning to see through our illusions. The book describes the way many things are mistaken for essence in spiritual and psychological endeavors. The book also describes the loss of essential qualities and the subsequent separation from true being that occurs during individual ego development, thus shedding light on the whole story of personal suffering that has sprung out of this illusory reality of our individual ego identities. The lives of most people involve a constant effort, he writes, to prop up, defend, promote, and improve our identity, whose status as a mental construct is never challenged. Thus, the liberation and joy of knowing our true identity is mostly lost, unless the desire for a deeper or truer experience of being is allowed to manifest and we have an opportunity to search effectively for the truth about ourselves. Almaas's book introduces a method for the retrieval and development of essence so that it can function as a transformative agent in the process of realizing a being we might call, well, I call the non-idiot, or maybe just the wise person. So let's jump in. Presence versus essence. In general, us idiots rarely have and never recognize as such the experience of essence. So let's begin by looking at a related quality of experience that is more commonly felt and talked about, the quality of presence. The expression, "I am present," is often used in spiritual and psychological circles with an assumption that its meaning is understood. We ask, what does this expression mean? What does being present actually signify? Most of the time, the expression is not used in a very definite or clear way. Most people, if asked, are unable to explain what they mean by present, although I can tell you Max over there is present. But there must be an actual condition that warrants using the expression, "I am present," Max is present. What is that condition? The expression literally means that, well, there's an I that is present at this time. Is this literal meaning accurate? Obviously, when we say "I am present," we don't mean exactly that we are aware, otherwise we would say "I am aware." There is a difference between the meaning of "I am present" and the meaning of "I am aware," although the two can and frequently do coincide. What is this difference? What makes us say present instead of aware? What is in the experience of "I am present" that is different from the experience of "I am aware," or even "I am aware of being present"? What is the element that accounts for presence, Max? So let's inquire into the meaning of presence by contemplating and analysing the actual experience of presence. We'll start by taking a very familiar situation, the aesthetic experience. My eye catches the sight of a beautiful little doggy over there, and suddenly my sight is clearer, my smelling is keener, I seem to be in my seeing, I seem to be in my smelling. Almaas uses the idea of the rose, but I've changed it. There is more of me here, seeing, smelling, and appreciating the rose or my beloved dog friend. The phenomenon is not simply one of increased awareness, so that more of the rose, more of the dog is experienced through my eyes or through my nostrils, so that more of this of these entities are experienced through my perceptual system. In the experience of increased presence, it is as if I meet my perceptions midway. It's as if I meet my perceptions midway. It's as if something of me, something more or less palpable, is present in my eyes, in my nose. Something in me besides my perceptual channels is participating in the experience of the rose, of the dog. And this something is not memory, it's not the past associations with roses or dogs. In a sense, my greater awareness actually enhances the presence of the rose, of the dog, or of any aesthetic object, such as a piece of music or a painting. Sometimes greater awareness enhances only a certain quality of an object, the beauty of the rose, its color, its smell, or its freshness. But sometimes the rose, as a presence in itself, is felt. If that experience is deep enough, our own presence is also enhanced. I seem to be more here, is what we feel. But what is this presence? Is there really an I that is more present? What exactly is it? Of course, the aesthetic experience is not restricted to a response to beauty alone. It might be the experience of awe when confronted by the immensity of the ocean or the grandeur of a mountain range. It could be the experience of admiration when one witnesses heroism in an individual or a group, or the courage or boldness of an explorer. These moments, however rare they are when we feel as if there is somehow more of us partaking of the experience. We want to understand then what this more of us means. More of what? What is the element that gives our experience this taste of presence? We're also aware that some individuals have greater presence than others. We say, she has more presence, or they're an imposing presence. But can we say what is really being referred to here? We are not referring to the quality of presence, of mind, which is greater awareness. Presence itself seems to be more than that. Presence also can be sensed at times of intense and deep emotions when a person is fully feeling an emotional state, not controlling or inhibiting it, when they are involved wholeheartedly in the feeling, totally immersed in it in a free and spontaneous way, without judgment or holding back. This usually happens only when that person feels totally justified in feeling whatever emotions they're feeling. For example, an individual might experience a great loss, like the death of a loved one, and so feel justified in feeling the grief and the sadness in some way. They might get so involved in the sadness, so immersed in it, that the feeling deepens as if it were miles deep, going to greater depths, greater profundity. And this state might become so deep and profound that it feels thicker and denser as they get more and more deeply immersed in it, so deep and profound that they experience themselves literally permeated by a kind of presence of this loss. It is as if the profundity and the depth are an actual presence in them, palpable and quite clearly there. Another example, a person might feel justified in feeling angry and indignant about being insulted or unjustly treated. The anger becomes so powerful that at some point, if we go unreservedly with the feeling, we will experience in the anger some kind of force powering it along. This force or power, this kind of chi, this fiery chi, is so clearly manifest that it assumes a palpable presence. It is as if the mounting power of the unrestricted emotion evokes more of the person that we are. We feel ourselves so present in the emotion, so at its center, that a clearly sensed and substantial presence seems to infuse the emotion and fill our body. The body feels packed with power so dense that this power becomes a kind of a presence, and the presence seems to be the source of the emotion and power both in it and behind or under it. At such times we often experience intense contact with the body, along with an astonishing capacity to use and direct it, not always for good. Now, what is this presence that exists in our arms, in the body, that seems to bring with it power, energy, contact, awareness? We are seeing that presence is more of an actuality than an idea or a metaphor. We are maybe getting a sense here that presence is much more profound, more real than even feeling or emotion. We're approaching, although still vaguely, an appreciation of what presence is. The presence one experiences does not have to be one's own and does not have to be individual. One can experience the presence of another. A whole group can be aware of a presence. Even one who is not particularly attuned to the quality of presence cannot but contact presence in some unusual and unique circumstances. One such situation is that of a mother giving birth to a baby. At times, when the mother is not under medication, when she is fully participating in the birth, her presence may be elicited. The mother may feel a fullness, a strength, a solid determination, an unmistakable sense that she is present in the experience, fully involved in it. The situation of giving birth is real. It is not social. It cannot be faked. For a woman to do it in full consciousness without the aid of mind-dulling medications, but even maybe with that, she might have to pull out all of her resources, pool all of her strength and determination, and be genuinely, genuinely present. This full presence of the woman also may be sensed by others. One may see it as the presence of intensity, of intense feeling and sensation, or of intense energy and attention. One also may be aware that the woman is present in a way unusual for her. She seems to have a fullness, she seems to have a glow, a radiance. The presence is unmistakable, beautiful, powerful. The experience of presence in this situation may be seen, if one is sensitive and aware, not to reside only in the mother. If all present or fully participating, and this often happens in such situations because of this dramatic intensity of the birth, then the presence is seen to usually pervade the room, to fill it and impregnate it. There is an intensity in the room, a palpable aliveness, the sense of a living presence. The experience of presence is most clearly felt when the baby is born, when it is out into the world. One may then experience a shift, an expansion in the energy of the room. One feels that the room definitely has a new presence in it, a fresh presence. The baby is experienced not only as a body, but something much more alive and much more profound. One may, if sensitively attentive, behold the newcomer as a clear and definite presence. The baby is a being. A being is present with no name, no history, no extras, a kind of blessing. One may, in fact, observe that different babies have different qualities of presence. In fact, they do, around about 8 or 9 different qualities. The quality of presence is not just a matter of their size, how they look, or what sex they are. Each seems to have its own unique quality of presence, which is quite obvious at birth, and which continues to be the mode of being for this particular baby. One may behold the emerging presence of baby as a sweetness, a fluffiness, a tenderness, or the presence is felt as a peacefulness, Enneagram 9, a quietness, a stillness. Yet another baby confronts us with a presence of clarity, lightness, joy, 7. Another might fill the room with strength, solidity, immovability, the personality style perhaps of a future 8. This experience of a situation being filled with a certain presence also may be felt in the purity and aloneness of nature. In moments of quietness and solitude like this in nature, even with the traffic behind, we might become aware that the natural environment itself has a presence that profoundly affects our minds and hearts. It is not uncommon when we are not occupied with concerns of the world, when the mind is empty or focused on talking like this, and still that nature presents itself not only as the objects consulting it, but as a living presence. A range of high rocky mountains can then be felt as an immensity, a solidity and a movability that is alive, that is there. This immensity and immovability seems sometimes to confront us, to affect us, not as an inanimate object, but as a clear and pure presence. It seems to contact us, to touch us, and if we are open and sensitive, we may participate in this immensity. We may then feel ourselves as one with the immensity, the immovability, the vastness. Just as mountains have their particular presence, so do forests, oceans, rivers, and meadows. One may even sense the presence of a tree, as Krishnamurti relates in one of his solitary contemplations. Quote, there was an intensity about the tree, he says, not the terrible intensity of reaching, of succeeding, but the intensity of being complete, simple, alone, and yet part of the earth. The colours of the leaves, of the few flowers, of the dark trunk were intensified 1,000-fold. We can expand our inquiry by considering presence in situations of stress or danger. Sometimes a person under extraordinary duress, when their ability to function might be expected to be reduced, will be saved by a surprising power or capacity surging from within. Our perceptions will suddenly become acute, our minds lucid, our bodies agile and responsive. We might experience a level of courage, of intelligence not normally available to us, an extraordinary strength and will, an unusual command over our minds, our emotions, our movements. At such a time, great feats can be accomplished in response to vital needs. We might feel dimly or lucidly that a power has awakened in us. It is as if the whole of our being has gathered in one integrated intensity, which makes possible the emergence of a calm strength, a poignant presence that deliberately and knowingly acts according to the needs of such a moment. Excitement is gone, emotions are absent, and thoughts are stilled. What remains is exactly what is needed to meet the emergency, even if it's just the emergency of the moment, which is every moment. What matters for our discussion of presence is that in those rare crises of life and death, when our ordinary capacities for perception and action fail us, there can emerge in us a power hitherto unknown, a calm and collected presence that can take charge and act unhampered by our thoughts and emotional states. This condition is not experienced simply as the absence of hampering thoughts and emotional conflicts. There is rather a positive presence of a power, of a superior intelligence that is not physical, emotional, or mental. This potential increase of presence in dangerous situations is utilized by some people, adventurous or athletic types, in forms of seeking or arranging situations that make it necessary for them to be intensely present. We are not speaking of the person who looks for emotional excitement by getting involved in dangerous situations, but rather individuals who knowingly or unknowingly seek situations of danger where excitement and emotionality are an impediment, where instead calm strength and intelligent presence are required. This potential of situations of extraordinary duress is recognized and utilized by some systems of self-development. The disciple is encouraged to stay awake and present in situations of extreme emotional difficulty or physical fatigue. Hundreds of mosquitoes. At such times, the usual everyday mind cannot function. The individual will tend to discharge emotionally or go to sleep if the fatigue is the result of prolonged lack of sleep. But if they're kept awake and willingly attempt to be present in the situation, they might emerge within them an intelligence or a strength that would change this whole situation. In Zen Buddhism, this is accomplished by giving the disciple a koan, an enigmatic phrase or question that cannot be understood by the discursive mind. The person goes over it in all the ways possible for them, mentally, emotionally, until they reach mental and emotional exhaustion. If we are not ready, and if the situation is ripe, if we are ready, and if the situation is ripe, then a momentary silence and stillness in us will bring forth a flash of satori, an emotionless and wordless realization. Inexperienced followers usually assume that the realization must be some kind of insight. However, the deeper realizations in Zen are glimpses of beingness, of being as such, of the presence of reality. The deep realization is the experience of presence. G.I. Gurdjieff, the Russian teacher, used this method of subjecting students to extreme duress. He frequently put his disciples into situations so difficult that most of them believed they would be impossible to tolerate. The students might walk long distances for days beyond their ordinary endurance levels, or they might perform menial tasks for days on end without sleep. Some thought that the purpose of these efforts was to build a certain kind of strength and endurance, which is partially true. Also, Enneagram 8, the real significance of those situations emerges when we understand that at the same time the students are supposed to practice self-remembering. Self-remembering is defined here as paying attention to both inner and outer environments. Some of his students assert that self-remembering also means maintaining the awareness that one is paying attention. In fact, this practice is only an exercise that will lead in time to actual self-remembering, which cannot be explained to a person who has never experienced it. If Gurdjieff had meant by self-remembering, splitting the attention in two, one part directed inward, one part directed outward, he would have just said, pay attention inside and outside. Why bring in the word self and the word remembering? One might argue that self means what we experience inside plus our awareness or our attention. This would include our emotions, sensations, and thoughts, plus our awareness of them, but this perspective is limited. It is due to not knowing that our inner experience doesn't actually include other categories of experience. We see the Gurdjieffian practice of self-remembering as the first step, the initial effort needed for real self-remembering to happen. However, if we limit ourselves to this understanding, we might never recognize the experience of true self-remembering, as Almaas calls it, because our preconceptions will function as barriers to our experience. Gurdjieff insisted that the usual efforts are useless for self-development. He talked about this sort of super efforts, efforts that transcend the usual limits of the personality and are not directed towards satisfying its usual personality needs. A human creature must understand, he said, that ordinary efforts do not count only super efforts count. And so it is always and in everything. You know, those who do not wish to make super efforts had better give up everything and take care of their health, is basically what he said. Super effort means an effort beyond the effort that's necessary to achieve a given purpose. And there's lots of, you know, Gurdjieffian podcasts out there, as we know. Imagine that I have been walking all day. I'm very tired. The weather is bad. It's raining. It's cold. It's the evening. I arrive home. I have walked, I don't know, 25 miles. In the house, there's supper. It's warm. It's pleasant. But instead of sitting down to dinner, I go out into the rain again and decide to walk another 2 miles along the road and then return home. This would be a super effort. While I was going home, it was simply an effort. And this does not count, according to Gurdjieff. I was on my way home. The cold, the hunger, the rain, all this made me walk. In the other case, I walk because I myself decide to do so. This kind of super effort becomes still more difficult when I do not decide upon it myself, but obey a teacher who at an unexpected moment required from me to make fresh efforts when I have decided, you know, the efforts for the day are over. Of course, such super efforts will develop strength and will, but Gurdjieff is more interested in self-remembering, according to Almaas, than in strengthening a person's capacity to endure. Certainly, part of the purpose lies in developing this capacity, but it is not the main purpose. An individual needs only to join the army to learn endurance. She doesn't need to work with Gurdjieff. Gurdjieff's method is to cause friction between the consciousness of the individual and their habitual manifestations, their personality, so that in time and under the right circumstances, there will emerge in us a taste of this self-remembering, the elixir of self-remembering. In writing about considering how to accomplish certain tasks that he set for himself, Gurdjieff describes how the totality of his mentations lead at some point to the conviction of the possibility of attaining all of his tasks as a result of the forces arriving from the friction of his consciousness with the automatic manifestations. He describes how, at the end of this perception, quote, "my whole being was filled as if by some singular, never till now experienced feeling of joy. Simultaneously with this, in and of itself, and without any manipulation on my part, there appeared the sensation of, so to say, self-remembering, also of a never-before experienced vigor," you know, like hexagram 1. It is obvious that here, Gurdjieff is referring to self-remembering as a sensation, and not as an activity or an insight. But then we ask, a sensation of what? He says it is the sensation of self-remembering, but we are attempting to understand what this self-remembering means. At this point, we understand only that self-remembering is a sensation of something. Our understanding here then is that this sensation is nothing else but, I don't know, shall we say the sensation of presence? It is the awareness of presence in oneself. Gurdjieff's methods were designed to help the person be so present in those situations of stress that presence becomes a palpable, definite experience. Anyone who has an impression of Gurdjieff through personal experiences or through his writings and work will undoubtedly experience Gurdjieff as a presence. We can call it power, we can call it will, we can call it strength, or we can just call it Enneagram 8. Nonetheless, the impression is very definitely of an impressive and powerful presence. This is a presence that confronts us. It challenges us. It is a presence that is beyond the words and the specific actions, a presence that is Gurdjieff. And Gurdjieff's presence is Gurdjieff, and also everyone else who more or less shares that personality style. That's why he uses the term self. It is he who is present as an actual palpable presence beyond his words, ideas, and actions. So we can say that what is meant by self-remembering is just that. It is the remembering of self. Gurdjieff meant the phrase literally and simply. People who don't understand this make it sound quite complicated. But when self-remembering happens, you know, it seems to be literal and simple. What is real in the person is present, remembered after being forgotten, basically. Gurdjieff called his last book, "Life is Real Only Then When I Am." And there is reality, basically. He's saying there's reality only when I remember myself, when I experience that I am. He also asserts in the same book that a person can do, that is, act consciously, intentionally, and without conditioning, only if this person is present, if they exist consciously. And here we remember those situations of extraordinary duress, where an individual can act unhampered by the usual ordinary states of consciousness. So according to Gurdjieff, these situations involve states of self-remembering. What we called presence is here seen as the presence of what is real in a person. I am present means what is real in me, is here. It is the conscious experience of existence. It is the experience of I am. Although we have made the connection between presence, self-remembering, and the experience of I am, a person might object that it is very vague and nothing has been proved so far. I might even say that. This is true. I am not trying to prove anything. This is not a logical argument. I am only an idiot. No, he doesn't say that. I am only seeking an appreciation, a taste for a realm of experience that the mind cannot grasp directly. It is a realm that cannot be reached by logic and argument. It can only be experienced directly. And that is why there are schools and systems developed just to engender and develop this. In discussing Gurdjieff's usage of the concept of self-remembering, we have been able to connect the experience of presence and the experience of existence. I am present is the conscious experience of I exist. It is the awareness of a living presence existing and being. It is not simply the awareness of the many thoughts, feelings, and emotions, which awareness is the preliminary requirement for self-remembering, and not self-remembering as yet. Gurdjieff called the real part of us, the part that can experience I am, he called it our essence. And he defined essence as the part of us we are born with, and that is not a product of our upbringing or our education. Sort of like the taste of ourselves. So in the experience of presence, what is present is essence, our true nature, which is independent of conditioning. Presence and essence are kind of the same then. We have discussed presence, sort of to give a taste, an entree, into essence. As we see, essence is the part of us that is the experience of I am. Essence is the direct experience of existence. Of course, essence can be experienced as other things, such as love, truth, peace, and the like, but the sense of existence is its most basic characteristic. It is the clearest, most definitive aspect that sets it apart from other categories of experience. Essence is, and that is what is most basic to its experience. This experience of I am, of direct apprehension, of existence, is not a mental or emotional experience and cannot be understood from this perspective of the usual categories of experience. The mind can think about existence, but it cannot exist. We have seen this in discussing presence. The answer to the question, what is essence, is what is in us that can experience I am. Essence is the only thing in us that is directly aware of its own existence. Essence is the only thing in us that is directly aware of its own existence. Awareness of its existence is an intrinsic quality of essence. We might argue that all people know that they exist, although they might not know their essence. And this is both true and false. We know that we exist, but we do not know it directly for the most part. The usual knowledge of existence is through inference. It is not a direct knowledge. The usual mode of knowledge of existence is epitomized by Descartes' cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I exist. We can infer existence only from various kinds of experience. Usually we think that we exist because we can see our bodies, hear our voices, feel our sensations, and so on. Descartes was more refined in saying that we know we exist because we know that we think. So there is always an inference from some perception. And the inference is of something that we are very vague about. When somebody says, I think, therefore I exist, what does this person mean by I? Are they clear about what they mean? You know, I'm not really thinking about anything at the moment. I'm just focusing on these words. But I certainly feel like I exist. And because there is inference, there is no total certainty. There might be logical certainty, there might be common sense certainty, but there is no real deeply felt existential certainty. The certainty doesn't exist in inference because experiential existential certainty needs direct experience. In fact, the most direct perception and experience we can get our hands on, which is this. The most direct perception and experience is the one of identity. When we are what we experience, when the perception is so direct that what perceives and what is perceived are the same thing, as I can see myself in the screen right now. This is exactly the experience of essence and of narcissism. Here there is no inference from something else. It is the most direct experience. The experience and the experienced are the same thing. There is no separation between subject and object. The subject and the object are the same essence. It is not only that there is no inference, there is also no intermediate medium for the perception. Usually there is an intermediate medium that enables a subject to experience an object. When the eye sees an object, the intermediate medium is light. But when essence is aware of itself, there is no intermediary. The object, the subject, and the medium of perception are all the same, essence. Also, the organ of perception is essence itself. There is in the experience only essence. Essence is in the subject, essence is in the object, essence is the medium of perception, essence is the organ of perception, essence is the experience. There is no separation whatsoever, no duality and no differentiation. It's all essence. It's essence all the way down. The experience of essence as existence, the experience of I am, is not as if there is a subject that is the actor of existence. The I and the am are not separate. The I am is a unitary experience. The nature of the essence of the real self is existence. The I itself is existence. So it is more accurate to say that the part of me that is existence is present. Essence is the only part of me that actually exists in the sense of experiencing itself as pure existence, pure presence. So far, Almaas, has investigated the question of presence, and we have seen that presence is the presence of our essence. It is the real part in us, the part not conditioned or produced by the environment. It is our intrinsic nature. We have seen that essence is the only part that is aware of its own existence directly, intimately, and with a certain amount of certainty. Essence is not simply the only part of us that is aware of its existence. It is what exists. It is not only what exists, but it is also existence. This existence is not only the nature of the human creature, but the nature of everything. It is the unity of all, or as Shabistari, the 14th century Sufi, put it, there is one atom greater than the whole, existence. For behold, the universe is, yet that universe itself is being. Being is various in outward form, but in its being bears inward unity. In experiential terms, presence and existence are somewhat different, but only in degree. Presence is the presence of essence, of that which is existence. However, we must go very deep, and we will, into this experience of presence to experience the most basic nature of essence, which is existence. So presence is the presence of essence. Existence is the inmost nature of essence, which sets it apart from all other categories of experience. When this experience occurs, it is not vague, unclear, or undefined. It is not an intuition or a fleeting insight. It is, says Almaas, very definite, clear, precise, a very clear, definite, precise experience of I am. There is definiteness in essence, and there is certainty.